Okie dokie, we better get started on our grammar. We're on page 121. 121 in grammar. Okay. We're talking about the adverb clause today. We know about ly adverbs, right? We know about those. You guys use those in your writing already, and you're really good at using those. This is a little bit different. This is called an adverb clause. Now, a clause is a group of words that begins, an adverb clause is a group of words that begins with a WWW word. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to tell you what that means. And contains a subject and a verb. Always, clauses have verbs, always, okay? An adverb clause must be added to a sentence that is already complete. Here's the pattern right here. It says WWW word plus subject plus verb. Now you might be thinking, what is a WWW word? That's weird. And I don't know if you've ever looked on the internet before, but a lot of websites start with www dot something, right? If you're going to a website. So it's just a fun way to memorize these words. That's all it is, a fun way to memorize these words. So the WWW word is right here, WWW, and then I always say dot, like a website, Asia.b. www.asia.b. And if you look at it over here in the margin on the side, that's what it says, www.asia.b. And Asia is a continent, right? You know about Asia. There's China and Japan, all those Asian countries are there. But it doesn't have anything to do with Asia. It's just a fun way to remember these words. So now look back at this one. The first W stands for when, because when starts with W. Then while, that's also a W. Where is another W. So when, while, where, that's what WWW stands for. And then Asia, so you've got A stands for as, S, since, I, if, A, although, and then we have a dot B, because. So www.asia.b stands for when, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. Weird, I know, it's weird, but it's kind of like, you know, fanboys and all those little things that we memorize to help us remember what these words are. Same thing, Asia, www.asia.b. So I'm going to say the words, you stay muted and repeat after me, okay? So I'll say it first and then you copy me. When, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. One more time, I'm gonna say it, you copy. When, while, where.
When, while, where.
As, since, if, although, because.
As, since, if, although, because.
Those are the words. And if you say it a bunch of times, you'll remember it. But it's a fun way to remember what those words are. Now, these adverb clauses start with one of those words. Go ahead and mute, Liana. So this example right here says, as the nose grew, it became long and heavy. Remember, we're learning about what's happening here, that her nose starts growing in this story that we're reading here. But look at how it starts with the word as, and as is the A in Asia, as. So it's one of these words that's part of an adverb clause. It starts with that. Notice they put parentheses around it. As the nose grew, that's the clause. You mark it with parentheses, you label it with AC. AC stands for adverb clause, not air conditioner, because we've heard that before. But AC is adverb clause, right? And then we have our subject is the nose, and then the verb is grew. So notice that the clause has a subject and verb pair. As the nose grew is the adverb clause. It became long and heavy. The next example right here in the middle of the page says, the soldier sat because his nose was too long. Oh, that's right. I forgot it was a boy's nose. I thought it was a girl's nose. The soldier sat because his nose was too long. Because is the B in www.asia.b. So that's the beginning of the adverb clause. You mark it with parentheses, just like you do like the who, which clause. And you're going to label it AC for adverb clause. And you're going to find that there's a subject and verb inside of there. That's how you label it in this book. Now, there are a couple comma rules. It says use a comma after an adverb clause that comes before a main clause. So when the adverb clause comes first, like this example, as the nose grew, then you need a comma. But if the main clause is first and then the adverb clause, you don't need a comma. That's the rule. Like this example, the main clause is first, the soldier sat, then the adverb clause, because his nose was too long. You don't need a comma in that one. Only when the adverb clause comes first. Okay, those are the two comma rules. Down here is a think about it. It says, so many words can be used as different parts of speech. However, a word can perform only one part of speech at a time. For example, because of is a preposition that begins a prepositional phrase, and because by itself is a WWW word that begins an adverb clause, because we saw because up here. But anytime you put because of together like that, it becomes a prepositional phrase. And it's telling you these two examples. So here's the example as the prepositional phrase. The soldier sat because of his long nose. Because of his long nose is underlined because it's a prepositional phrase. It has because of. But look down here at this adverb clause example. It says, the soldier sat because his nose was too long. That doesn't have because of, it just says because his nose was too long. That's an adverb clause right there. Okay, and so it starts with because, and it has a verb was, and the subject is knows. So remember, clauses have subject and verb pair. You guys have any questions so far about this page? Okay, let's move on to the practice page on page 123. And does anybody want to volunteer to read the sentence today? Okay, Mariah, I saw your hand first. Go for it.
When they found their unhappy friend who was lying helplessly under the tree, they groaned.
Good. Groaned is our vocabulary word. That's a sound that we make, like a right? It's like a deep sound with our voice. It's not a word, it's just a sound. Usually if we're in pain or if we're really tired or sad about something, we groan, right? So it's a verb, but go ahead and put a check mark by vocabulary. There's one article, go ahead and find it by yourself and mark it. Check that off. And then I'm going to start with Liana. What are the nouns? There's two nouns here.
Friend
Good, that's one. One more.
and tree.
Good. Good, that's it, those two. And then Christopher, what about the pronouns? There's two pronouns here.
They,
Good,
they,
and they again, huh? Right here. Two theys, very good. That's a plural pronoun. Adjectives, what are some words that describe the nouns, Lacey? There's two of them.
Unhappy
Good, that's one.
and lying helplessly.
That one has a ly, so that's an ly adverb, but it's actually right here because it answers the question like whose friend. But there's something really wrong with this word right here, there. Did you notice that, Lacey?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know how we should spell that?
T-H-E-I-R.
Yes, very good. T-H-E-I-R. That means that the friend, the unhappy friend belongs to them or their. It's their friend. So then that becomes an adjective because it's telling whose friend. Anytime you answer that question, whose, that makes it an adjective. Good, Lacey. Let's see, Mariah, where is the ly adverb?
Helplessly.
Good. We're going to put ly there. I like to wait on the prepositional phrase, so we'll come back to that. But Liana, where is the who which clause?
um, does it start on who?
It does. It starts on who. And then how far does it go? Who, what's the whole clause?
And that
It actually goes all the way to the comma. So the whole clause
the
is,
tree.
yep, to tree. Who was lying helplessly under the tree? That whole thing is the who which clause. So we'll label it with W/W. And then Christopher, where is the adverb clause? Oh, before you tell me though, right here next to adverb clause, I want you guys to write www.asia.b like that. To help you remember, that's what you need to think of when you're looking for your adverb clause. When, while, where, as, since, if, although, because. Those are those words. So do you see it, Christopher?
When
Good. What's the whole clause? You can read the whole clause.
they found the unhappy friend.
Good. That whole first part of the sentence right there. And we're going to label it with AC because when is one of the W's in www.asia.b. That's good. Now we've got subjects and verbs to look for. So Lacey, where are the verbs? Let's start with those, the action words for helping.
Found.
Good, that's one.
Grown.
Groaned is one, good.
And lying.
Yes. Lying is like laying down, basically. And then there's a helping verb right before that.
Was.
Good. So Lacey, how about the subjects? Who was it that found their unhappy friend?
They found.
They did, you're right. So they is the subject. So we're going to write S on top of the PR for pronoun. And then what's the subject here in the who clause?
They groaned.
Oh yeah, okay, that is over here. You're right. That one's they. They groaned. How about inside the who clause though? There's one more subject in here.
Who.
Good. I'm going to put it way up there. But you're right. Who is also a subject. Very good, Lacey. Now we have Mariah. Now you should be able to see the prepositional phrase. There's only one. Look for the word that doesn't have anything on top of it yet. This is for you, Mariah.
Under.
Under, good. So what's the phrase? You're right. It starts with under. What's the whole phrase?
Under the tree.
Good. Excellent. Under the tree. That's the prepositional phrase. That's why I like to save it till the end, because then you can see it. There's nothing on top of it. Under the tree. Liana, what should we capitalize? There's only one word.
When?
Good. When. How about the end mark, Christopher? What do we need at the end?
Ground.
Period. And we already fixed the homophone. That was this one there. So we did that already. So good job. We got it. Awesome. Okay, so your homework, as usual, is the next 3 pages. You're going to write this one down later, but then you're going to do pages 124, 125, and 126 for grammar. Good job, you guys. Now let's get out our binders next. Okay. Binders. You guys finished up your article or your report actually on Antarctica. And I only have time for one person to read. If you want to read your article, or not your article, your report on Antarctica, raise your hand if you have it with you and you want to read it, you can. Does anybody want to do that? Anybody feel like it? You're like, no, that's okay. You don't have to. But you're done with it now. We already wrote about Antarctica. You guys wrote about the ice. You wrote about the people and the weather and maybe the animals. So you guys did a really good job. I gave you a grade on Google Classroom, and I also put some notes in there. So make sure sometime soon you go to Google Classroom and read my notes for you, okay? So let's just go on to the next thing. You can put away Antarctica now behind finished compositions, okay? So go ahead and put away in your binder. Remember how we do this? Unless you keep your finished stuff somewhere else, maybe you have another binder you use, but go ahead and put away Antarctica wherever you keep that stuff. And then put it behind finished compositions, but way back here or in another binder or another file. But you can put that away. After you put away Antarctica, then you need to get out the next week, which is Marco Polo, week 12. This is going to be behind that first tab called Source Text tab. You know where it's at. You're going to take out week 12, Marco Polo. Make sure you guys close your rings when you're moving around in your binder, okay? But you're only going to get out 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, all of the papers for week 12, Marco Polo. And you need a piece of lined paper, so make sure to get a piece of lined paper out and a pen or a pencil, and then you're ready to go. So give me a thumbs up when you have week 12 and a lined piece of paper and a pen or a pencil and you're ready. I saw yours, Liana. Good. Christopher, do you have your stuff out? I see that, Lacey. Thank you, Mariah. Did you find it, Christopher? Did you get lined paper out too? So get a piece of lined paper. I don't see you getting it out, Christopher. Did you get lined paper? Go ahead. You can unmute.
My baby brother and sister were messing around, so I'm locked in this room.
You don't have any lined paper in that room?
Yeah.
Wait, do you have lined paper?
Oh, I don't have it in this room.
Oh, okay. Maybe just for today, you can use like the back of this page because it's blank. Okay, you can use the back of that page because we're gonna need to set up your keyword outline and all of that. So you're gonna need that, okay? Okay. Let's see, the first step is let's set up your line paper, and for you, Christopher, just use the back of that one. Go ahead and put your name and date up here like we always do. Today is February 28, 24. And skip a line. We're gonna write about Marco Polo. You probably have played that game before in the swimming pool. Have you guys played Marco Polo? Yeah, me too. Yep. Marco Polo. And you try to get away from the person, right? You try to not get tagged. It's a fun game. I like playing it. Or and I think another version of it is like fish out of water. You guys done that? Where it's like fish out of water. And if they catch you out of the water, then you're it. I like it. It's a fun game. So Marco Polo, and then we're going to put KWO here because we're going to work on a keyword outline like you guys have been doing since the beginning of the year. And this is going to be 3 paragraphs. So I'm just going to have you set up all of the keyword outline, but we're not going to write all this week. We're just going to focus on the first paragraph, but I still want you to get it ready. So go ahead and skip a line, and we're going to put Roman numeral 1, and you're going to write 1 through 5. And do that for Roman numeral 2 and 3. So you'll skip a line. I'll give you a minute to write this all down. Try to keep it really neat, okay? Try to keep it all lined up nice and neat like that. Hey, give me a thumbs up when you got that. Good. Thank you, Lacey. While you guys are finishing up, there are some steps that we need to take in order to write a report like this. You guys did this already for Antarctica, but the first step is to know what your subject is. So up here at the top where you have Marco Polo, I want you to put an equal sign like we do in math. And then I want you to put subject. That is the subject of your paper, of your report. You're writing about Marco Polo. So you have the big subject, but now we have to come up with the topics, right? The topics are what each paragraph will be about. So I want you next to Roman numeral 1 in the margin back here, put the word topic. And I want you to put it next to Roman numeral 2, topic, and Roman numeral 3, topic. So there are going to be 3 topics that you write about that have to do with the subject, Marco Polo. And in order to figure out what topics you're going to write about, we have to see what this article tells us. We have to determine, what are these paragraphs about in the article? And then we have to pick one. Actually, we have to pick 3 altogether that tell about Marco Polo. So the next step is going to be reading the article. Okay. So I'm just going to leave this here for a minute. And now I want you to look at the article about Marco Polo. This starts on page 99. Just like we did with Antarctica, I want you to underline information that you think is interesting or important, either both of those, okay, interesting and important. You're going to underline, but I don't want you to underline every single sentence. Try really hard not to do that. I know sometimes that's hard, but just pick a few that you think are interesting in each paragraph, okay? And then we're going to talk about what each paragraph is mostly about. All right, so I'm going to start reading, and you guys use a pen or a pencil, either one, to underline information, okay? In 1254, that's a date, by the way, Marco Polo was born into a rich merchant family. I'm going to pause there for a second. Merchant is an old term. We don't really use it anymore, but this is, a long time ago. This is like almost 800 years ago. So a long time ago, right? A merchant is a business owner or somebody who does business by trading. So a merchant will trade. So like if Marco Polo, if his family had, let's say, cotton, maybe they grew cotton on their farm, they would trade their cotton maybe for somebody who grew corn. And that would be a good trade, right? They would give them cotton and they would get corn in return. So it's trading, basically. That's what merchant is. His father and uncle had traded in the Middle East for years, gaining wealth and fame. Although his mother died when he was young, he was raised in Venice, Italy, by relatives. Relatives means part of your family, like aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas. He received a good education and learned the skills necessary for the business of trade. His father and uncle left for China when he was 6 and returned when he was 15. They had met the Mongol emperor who sent his greetings to the Pope. Okay, there's some people that maybe you don't know about in there, but Mongol emperor, that's like the president of Mongolia. He was the emperor. You've probably heard that word before. And then the Pope is in the Catholic Church. The Pope is the highest priest. You've probably heard that word before. He's the guy that wears the really tall, big, white, funny looking hat. He usually has a big cross or something around his neck, and he wears a robe. That's the Pope, right? He's part of the religious community, I guess you could say. So this whole paragraph really was mostly about the early life of Marco Polo. He's a real person, by the way. So in the margin here, we're just going to make a note like we did for Antarctica. I want you to put early and life. Write that on next to that paragraph, because what we're doing is trying to figure out what are these paragraphs about. This is talking about Marco Polo's early life. It mentions his father and mother, relatives, where he was born, what year he was born, all that stuff is his early life, okay? I'm going to keep going. Did you guys get a chance to underline a few things in that paragraph? Okay, good. Do the same thing here, and we're going to figure out what is this paragraph mostly about. When Marco was 17 years old, he left with his father and uncle on a trip across Asia to China. They set off from Venice in 1271 and sailed to Israel. they carried letters from the Pope in Rome. In Jerusalem, they were given some sacred oil to present to the Mongol emperor. 2 friars were ordered to accompany the merchants, but they abandoned the expedition, means they left. Friars are people in the Catholic Church too, okay, like the Pope. Not as high up as the Pope, but they were people. Instead of sailing around India to China, the Polos decided on an overland route. Passing through Iran and Afghanistan, they continued east. The Polos' caravan traveled over mountains and through deserts, following the oasis. After more than 3 years of travel, they finally reached the court of the Emperor Kublai Khan. That was the name of the emperor. So basically that's telling us, rather than taking a boat or a ship and going all the way around in the ocean, they decided to just go across the land on foot, right? They might have had camels or donkeys to help them, but they were basically going across the land, not on the sea anymore. And they were carrying letters to the Pope. So this is talking about their travel to China, right? They were going to China. So let's put in the margin here, travel and China. That's where they were headed. They were traveling to China.
Travel. China?
Travel and China. Yep, and they were delivering letters from the Pope, and they were also trying to just get to China, right? Crossing over India and all these other places, Jerusalem. They were trying to get to the Mongol emperor. So it's all about their travels, okay, across China. Let's go to the back of that page. This is a long article, by the way, so it's going to take a little bit to get through each paragraph here. I'm going to keep going, but you guys keep underlining. The great Khan, that was the emperor, was delighted to see the Polo brothers again. He received with joy the letters and gifts they brought. Discovering that young Marco was intelligent and had a talent for languages, the Khan appointed him to high posts in the government, probably a tax collector. He also went on special missions for the Khan, traveling throughout China and to Burma and India. His father and uncle possibly assisted as military advisors during the siege of Saianfu. I think that was one of the generals in the military. During this time, Marco and his family gained wealth, that's money, as well as favor and protection of the Khan. So they liked him. They really liked him. And he got favor, which means he probably got blessed with money and maybe a place to live. And then they trusted him, right? So Marco Polo was a guy that they could trust. This is mostly talking about his work in China. He knew the languages, and then they assigned him a job with the government there as a tax collector. I don't think I'd want to be a tax collector. Nobody likes taxes, right? We don't like taxes. It's just money that we owe the government. Your parents know all about that.
There was like, I think the front door, like there was like a president, I think, and they're like the ones that created the tax, and we're like, I don't want them to be president. I don't want him.
I know.
Nobody voted.
Some presidents make us pay more taxes than other presidents. So yeah, it's true. Whoever's in charge makes those decisions. So But let's put his work. I'm going to put work and China. Hold on, put that better. So we have work and China. The other one said travel. He was traveling to China. This is his work in China. He was a tax collector, and he also, his father and uncle were part of the military advisors. So they were like high up, important people. Okay, I'm going to keep going right here. We're going to do the same thing. Keep underlining as you come across stuff that you think is interesting. Keep underlining. The Polos remained in service to the Khan for 17 years. When they decided to leave, he asked them to escort a Mongol princess to Persia, where she would marry. Remember, back in these olden days, the parents picked who you were going to marry. You didn't really have a choice. Okay, it's called an arranged marriage. That's the way it used to be. It's not like that anymore. But so the parents picked somebody for her to marry. And so the Polos took her to Persia, where she would marry somebody. Okay. They departed with 14 ships, the princess, and many hundreds of servants and sailors. Sailing south, they rounded Malay, and the southern tip of India to finally land on Hormuz in Persia. The journey took 2 years, and most of the passengers and crew died from disease, drowning, or pirate attacks. So it was a dangerous time, to be out on sea. And if you're gone that long, a lot of times people get sick and they don't have the medicine they need to get better, so they would die. After delivering the princess, so they made it there to Persia, they continued by land to the Black Sea, from where they were able to sail home, reaching Venice in 1295. That's their home, right? So it took that long, and they had been gone for 24 years. They were gone from home for 24 years. That means he probably, didn't see the rest of his family for a long, long time. And they traveled almost 15,000 miles or 24,000 kilometers. That's a long, long travel. So this is talking about his travel home. So go ahead and write that in the margin there, travel home. So just to remind you, what we're doing is reading through this article, underlining stuff, but we're also labeling these paragraphs so we have some options for topics to write about, okay? Okay. There's another page. We're going to keep going. This is page 101, and that's the last page. So 101 right here. Almost done.
There's a lot of pages.
A lot of pages. It's a big one. It's
A long
definitely a big one.
story.
Yeah, it's a long one. All right, so keep underlining though as you go. In addition to various valuable trade items, the Polos brought back to Italy many interesting spices, including peppercorns, cinnamon, and ginger, which quickly gained in popularity. So I think in Venice, when they were back in Italy, they didn't have those spices. They didn't have peppercorn, cinnamon, and ginger. So they were like, whoa, what's this? These are awesome. And then they got popular, right? The spices like, ooh, let's use the cinnamon in bread and all the yummy stuff, right? 3 years after his return to Venice, Marco Polo was fighting in a war against the rival city of Genoa. He was captured and sent to a prison in Genoa. There, with help from a well-known author named Rustichello, he wrote a book of his travels. He described Kublai Khan and his palaces, paper money, coal, a postal service, and eyeglasses, none of which had been seen in Europe yet. After a year in prison, the war was over, and he was free to return to Venice. Eventually, he married, had 3 daughters, and continued as a successful merchant until his death in 1324 at age 70. So this is basically talking about what happened after his travels, right? He brought things back with him, but then war began. There was a new war, and then he got captured and put into prison. Poor guy. He's had a rough life, right? Then he was in prison for a whole year, and then they freed him, and then he wrote a book. So let's call this Life After, meaning life after his travels, right? We'll just put life after. That'll be what that means. It's after his travels. Okay, last paragraph. Keep underlining. The book entitled Description of the World or the Travels of Marco Polo sold well and widely. However, many people didn't believe his stories. The book got the nickname The Million Lies. So people didn't believe him. They thought he was lying about some of this stuff. At that time, books had to be hand copied. So it is possible that his stories were changed over the years. Nevertheless, people were amazed at the things he wrote. 2 centuries later, the book inspired Christopher Columbus, we know that guy, to think he could reach India by sailing west from Europe. On his deathbed, Polo was asked to admit that parts of this book were just made up. He answered that he had told, quote, barely half of what he actually saw. So they were trying to get him to admit they were lies. And he's like, I didn't even tell you the whole story. There's more. You think those were lies? You don't even know. So I think they were true. But back then, before they knew about these things, they were like, I've never heard of some of these. What are these spices you're talking about? And I've never heard of eyeglasses. And, this was a long time ago. So this is mostly talking about his book, though. So let's call this one book. All right, that took a while. That's okay. We're done now with the article. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to make a list of all the things we wrote in the margins. And we're going to put that list. I want you to go to this page now that we started with and turn it over to the back. This is the back of your keyword outline that we started getting ready. And Christopher, you can just find the back of another piece of paper maybe, or at the bottom of that paper. If you have room, you could put it at the bottom. But I want you to put the words possible topics and then underline that, possible topics. And now we're going to make a list of all of our notes that we put in the margins here. So the first note we wrote was early life, right?
Early life.
Yeah, early life. Good. And I'm going to skip lines here. So early life. What was the next one we put, Liana?
Travel China.
Good. Travel China. We're making a list. What's the next one? How about Lacey, what's the next one we put in the margin?
Afterlife.
Not yet. We have early life, travel, China. Turn that page over to the back.
Work China.
Work China. And then what, Mariah? What's after work China?
Travel home.
Travel home. So put that one next. You guys should be writing this down. And then life after, and then book. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to write all that down. Basically, that's what each one of the paragraphs was about. So these are your possible topics now. You're going to decide which ones you want to write about. because you're gonna write a 3-paragraph report altogether, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics to choose from. You only need 3. So this is where you get to pick which topic you want to start with. It wouldn't make sense to start with traveling home, right? Because that you can't start a report like that. It'd be like, wait, who are we talking about and what are they doing? So most of the time when you're writing about a person like this, you start with their early life. Like, who are they? And,
Yeah.
you know, where did they come from? When were they born? All those things are important to have in a report about a person. So I think we should start with this one.
Yeah.
Early life. Okay. So turn this back over here. And now, we're going to talk about Marco Polo. I want you to circle the M and the P because we can call it MP, and that way we know we're talking about Marco Polo. MP like that. That means Marco Polo. And let's talk about his early life when he was born. And when you look on that first paragraph, it tells us 1254 was when he was born. So I'm going to put born 1254. And he was born in Italy. I remember reading about that. But he was born in a merchant family. I think that would be a good thing to include. Yeah, a merchant is like they trade, right? So merchant family. And I'm going to put a $sign here because it did mention that they were rich, and that can help me remember, oh yeah, they had money. Okay, they were wealthy. So we have MP born 1254, merchant family, money. And you can rearrange those words when you make that sentence, however it makes sense best to you, okay? All right. Going back now we're going to only focus on his early life. So things that you read in this first paragraph. Does anybody have something underlined in here in the first paragraph that you want to share about his early life? Raise your hand if you have something underlined there. Lacey, what do you have?
His father and uncle had traded in the Middle East for years.
Yeah, I think that's a good one too. His father and his uncle traded in the Middle East. Okay. Do you have an idea of how we can put that on our keyword outline, Lacey?
We can put MP, father, uncle, traded, and then I don't know for Middle East.
Middle East, yeah.
ME.
ME, yeah. We could put maybe F for father. What if we did MP? I like that. And maybe his F plus uncle. And that might help you remember, oh yeah, F is for father. If you forget, you can always go back and look on the article to remind yourself, okay? MPF plus uncle, and then you said traded. I think that's an important word. And now we have room for one more word, and Middle East. Oh, do you have something to say, Mariah?
Well, I was gonna wait until for the number 2 because I had underlined something.
I'll ask you next then. So for this part though, we can put Middle East and it's capitalized, so we can count that as one word because it's the name of a place. So we have MP for Marco Polo. His father plus uncle, his father and uncle traded in the Middle East. And then Mariah, what did you have? What else is something you underlined there?
Well, his father and uncle left for China when he was 6 and returned when he was 15.
Yes, that was interesting. I really thought that was interesting too. I do want to put that a little bit later though. So remember that, okay? Because there's some other good stuff before that. Well, I say good stuff, and I know that his mother died, and that's not a good thing. That was sad, but it's important, right? He didn't have his mother. So that kind of came next here. His mother died when he was young, and he was raised by his relatives. So Liana, how can we put that maybe in the next part here? Maybe we could start by mentioning his mother.
Yeah. Mother. Mother. Maybe died and then young?
Yeah. I think we should put MP though here before young, because otherwise it sounds like his mother died when she was young. But it wasn't, he wasn't young. It was Marco Polo who was young. So what if we did mother died MP young?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Christopher, what about his education? We should probably say something about his education next, and then we'll come to Mariah's idea. So what do you think we could put about that, Christopher, about his education? It's on page 99. We're looking at that top paragraph though. It mentions his education. What can we say about that?
Education, learned skills.
Yeah. I like that. Education, learned skills, but we do probably need that word business. What if we did education, skills, business? Yeah. Education, skills, business. We know that skills just means like how to do it, right? The business of trade. So he had to learn, how do you trade? And in that, you have to learn how to communicate with people and say like, I'll give you 2 bags of corn if you give me 2 pounds of meat. I'm just giving an example. Like if you're trading food, right? I'll give you corn if you give me meat. And you have to be able to communicate that. And you have to know what's a good trade, right? You don't want to trade like a handful of rice or something and expect them to give you a bunch of something. You know, you got to make sure it's a fair trade, right? You can't just trade whatever you want. So those are the skills that he learned about the business of trading. And then I like Mariah's idea. She was going to talk about how his father and uncle left for China when he was 6 and returned home when he was 15. So we can use the numbers 6 and 15 for free. So how do you think we should put that in there, Mariah? How do we get that information in our outline?
We can use father, uncle, left,
Okay.
6 months and 15.
Okay. I think we need the word China though. Can we do F again for father? And that way we can use China. Okay, so what if we did, we'll do MP again, MP father plus uncle, like we did up here, father plus uncle. Left China I guess we could put the number 6 and then an arrow and then 15. Can we remember what that stands for? They left 6 and they came back when it was 15. If when you get to do this homework and you're like, what do I mean by that? I don't know what 6 to 15 means. Go back and look at that paragraph. It'll help you, okay? And then one more, we have number 5. I know we're kind of out of time, but let's do one more. They met the Mongol emperor who sent greetings to the Pope. So we can put met emperor. And then maybe greetings and maybe a cross to represent the Pope. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Met. And I'm not going to use Mongol. I'm just going to put emperor because we know they're in China. Met emperor. Greetings. And then we'll draw like a cross shape, maybe. And if you forget what that is, like, remember the Pope is the part of the Catholic Church. So it's a part of the church, right? He's like a high priest. So, all right. So now you have your keyword outline ready to go. You can use this now to write your first paragraph. That's your homework this week. Don't forget, we're just going to look super fast here. Don't forget to use your checklist. Okay. This is how I grade your homework. Make sure you have all 4 of these. You're still working on ly adverb, who, which clause, strong verb, and because clause. And use those in your paragraph. When you use your because clause, do not use because of. That's one thing I want you to use. Don't say because of. Don't use of, just because. You're going to tell why something is the way it is, okay? And then your topic clinchers, don't forget that. So you're just writing one paragraph so far, the first one. You guys have any questions? Okay, Lacey, I see your hand.
I don't have a question, but when I for no because of, I put it at the bottom of that page that you're showing right now. So when I'm writing my paragraph down, I look at it so I remember it.
Good. Oh, I like that. You made a little note. Let's do that. Because, did you cross it out? Like not use that?
I just put no because of.
No, because of. Another way you could do it is like this. Because of. Don't use because of. You can use because. That's okay. But not because of. I like that. Good idea, Lacey. That's a really good idea to put a note at the bottom of your page. That's very smart to do that. Here's how she did it. She put no because of. If you like it that way better, you can do that. You don't want to use of. Okay. Good job, you guys. I know we're out of time. I will see you next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. See you next time.